been wondering for a while why so many people have been tuning into the Johnny Depp-Amber Heard trial. Why so many Indians online have been invested in the story, and some actually cheered when Depp was awarded $15 million in defamation. Honestly, why should it concern us that two American celebrities are engaged in a slanging match in court? Apart from the drama of a live trial, the underlying issue, perhaps, that has resonated is of Heard allegedly lying about being a victim of domestic abuse, and the trial displaying that it was Depp who was actually the victim. A famous superstar was being beaten up and then was falsely accused by his ex-wife. He lost in the process lucrative jobs and his reputation. And this verdict has been seen as a vindication by men who believe they are often victims of false allegations. That is the headline we will go beyond today. First, let's look at how popular this case became. This case was completely live streamed and over 10 million people tuned in for each proceeding that was broadcast. The hashtags Justice for Johnny Depp on TikTok saw 6.8 billion views, while the I Stand with Amber Heard hashtag saw about 2.4 million views, a fraction of the one for Johnny Depp. On Twitter, pro-Depp posts saw more likes than Heard's entire following. In fact, even before the verdict, Heard had lost the battle in popular perception and was the target of several memes and jokes. After the decision, which saw Amber Heard also being awarded $2 million for defamation, there were comments that this is a setback for women. That's what we need to explore. Is this truly a setback for women? Let's take a look at statistics of domestic violence in the United States to understand what this issue really is. Over 10 million adults experience domestic violence annually in the United States. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 10 men experience sexual and physical violence and stalking. So look at the odds there, 1 in 4 versus 1 in 10. Female victims sustain injuries 3 times more often than male victims. 1 in 5 male victims and 1 in 5 female victims and 1 in 9 male victims need legal services. Let's talk about India, where the issue is truly a serious one and very few people perhaps even come out and speak about what they're suffering. In India, cases of cruelty by husband and kin under that particular act, the numbers that are registered have been increasing consistently, and by 2019 it was about 1,25,000. Now, by law, the burden of proof, as it should, lies with the person making the accusation. The question is, will the Heard Depp verdict be a setback to women who've truly suffered domestic abuse? Does this case give credence to the view that men are often falsely accused? And you're seeing the hashtag #MenToo trending after that. How can we ensure that actual victims of domestic abuse, not the ones who are making it up, and so many of them don't speak up, don't get further silenced after this? To speak on this, I'm joined today by Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj, activist and documentary filmmaker. Shubhrashta, author and women activist, is also joining us on the show. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for speaking with us this evening. Shubhrashta, I want you to just come in on the basic question I've posed. After this, a lot of activists and lawyers as well said that this is a setback for women. Do you believe it is in any form or fashion?
Again, to articulate what I feel on the issue, there are a couple of disclaimers that I would want to put out. I do not support violence against women, men in any form. Number one. Point number two, and the kind of views that I would present is not an endorsement for the kind of language Johnny Depp used for women. But having said that, with the statistics that you just placed in front of your viewers, it is very clear that like, women who have been at the receiving end of lots of crimes, not just by physical violence by men, but also by the inherent misogyny that exists in Western societies, and of course our societies as well. There are an equal number of cases, if not equal, a considerable number of cases, which has made to statistics that men require a certain kind of support system in supposedly mature democracies and economies like the US. Now, having said that, now what this entire debate has done to us is, especially us Indians, is we were fed into a media we were fed into a frenzy of media mania, of really looking into every dirty detail of a celebrity culture. And with celebrity culture will, come a dissociation with the kind of reality that we are all mired in. We all know that in India, especially in India, women definitely are far more at the receiving end of violence than men. But having said that, is it always that women, have we not seen cases or heard cases where women have also twisted and manipulated the system?
No, but Subrata, I'm not sure what is the point you're trying to make. I've asked a very simple question. Do you think
Yes.
this is a setback for women who are actual victims of domestic violence, or will the truth come out?
If you want a one monosyllabic answer, it's a no.
Okay. So, you're saying it's not a setback, the truth will come out. Deepika, where do you stand on this? Because
the truth has already come out, Tamanna.
This is a defamation trial. No, but remember, this is a defamation trial. Johnny Depp was not on trial for whether he has been, abusing his wife or not. He sued her for defamation. So the question here, legally at least, wasn't whether he beat her up or not, or she beat him up or not. But anyway, Deepika, my point is that, do you think this has given credence to men who have been saying, hey, we're victims too, and amplified their voices even further? And will that be a threat? Will that be a threat to women who, at the first instance, when they speak up, face this question? Are you lying?
Well, Tamanna, I'll begin from where you started the show on why Indians are so invested and interested in this when there are two US celebrities, washing their dirty linen. The reason, Tamanna, is the statistics that you presented in the beginning. You said there is a 498A case, which is going to 1.25 lakh cases every year. You probably could have presented the data on domestic violence as well in India. All the data and statistics that you would have presented, Tamanna, today would have been only for women, because all the gender-based provisions in India are only for women. No matter if a man is a victim of sexual harassment or domestic cruelty or domestic violence or stalking or verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, yes, men in India do not have the provisions to complain against a woman. And that is why a lot of people, especially men in India, were invested into this case, because they saw Johnny Depp as somebody who was representing them. There are thousands and thousands of people, and I'm working in this space for the last 10 years, where men are falsely accused of dowry, domestic violence, rape, and they do not find a voice. And the men in India, and also the women who stand up for men, knowing well that they are innocent and they have been falsely accused, were actually watching this trial every single day to see where this leads up to. Because Johnny Depp, I would not go into the depth of who was more abusive, but one thing is very clear: they both were abusive to each other. Amber Heard has lost this case and lost this defamation trial because she hurled allegations with malice. They were false, they were lying, she was lying, and it has been proven. Defamation suits are very difficult to prove, by the way. So the overwhelming evidence that went in Johnny Depp's side, and this is not just coming, a lot of people are putting this as, oh, men, patriarchy, and power and money. No, that was not the case. The jury has sat through for 3 weeks.
Deepika, I agree with you. This was completely transparent. Because it was, live, and people also saw it because it was on their feeds. You could not escape it even if you wanted to. And it was engaging to watch what was happening. But I just want to draw your attention, Deepika, because I'm sure while you speak vocally... Let me just take this further.
Just a very two-line thing which I want to say, after which please continue. This will not be a setback for women, Tamanna. This will, in fact, make the processes more transparent, where women can understand that they will not get away by hurling false accusations,
no, so
destroying
you've contradicted yourself,
life.
Deepika. You've said it's not a setback for women, but women will understand that they cannot hurl false accusations.
Exactly.
Are you starting from the position... One minute. Are you starting from the position that women largely hurl false accusations? I'll tell you what...
That's not something
I'll tell you
that
what made me uncomfortable. One minute. Let me just complete my point, Deepika, and then you're free to respond. I request you to listen to what I'm saying. I'll tell you what made me slightly uncomfortable. And absolutely, the truth has prevailed, etc., etc. I, like many Indians, are watching, like curious bystanders of what is happening in this trial. These are not our celebrities, and this is happening. But what made me slightly uncomfortable is the number of memes targeting Amber Heard as a liar even before the final verdict came in. There seemed to be this sort of, very happy malice in proving that, look, a woman was lying. And that is a little question mark in my mind. Don't you think that there may be cases now where women are not lying? They're actually being abused. But when they speak up, this will be seen as an example. This will be cited as an example. Is that a concern you have at all?
I do not have that concern, Tamanna. This did not start from the first day of the trial. This happened when her lies were caught on screen, when she was questioned by the defense attorneys, when she was making contradictory statements, when she was making allegations that her own witnesses were sort of demolishing or contradicting. So this did not start on the first day. This started when people started seeing the truth playing out on their screens. And one thing very important that I want to add, Tamanna, we have seen the times of 2018 when Me Too happened, where on the mere basis of accusations, people were cancelled, men were cancelled. So many men were cancelled without being subjected to a due process. So I personally think the biggest reason why this case has been followed by millions and millions of people across the world, because this was a case where there was no due process earlier when Johnny Depp was punished, but he ensured that there was due process and he fought for his truth and his story. So I am not saying from the first go you consider a woman a liar.
Right.
That's now at least provisions in India work. A woman can go ahead in the police station, register an FIR. The police is duty bound to file an FIR. But my question to you, Tamanna, is how many women do you know who have been punished for hurling false accusations in India? I've made documentary on 498
how would
misuse.
you prove that?
I've made documentary on 376
No, that's
misuse.
great. That's great,
There are
Deepika.
so many
That's
lives
absolutely
of men
great
who
that
have
you've
been
made all of these
destroyed.
documentaries.
But
That's absolutely great you've made all of these documentaries. But the question is a wider one. I'm not denying that there must be women who are, hurling false accusations. There must be men who are hurling false accusations. I'm talking about what the wider picture is, especially here in India. Shubhrashta, I think we should look at the context in terms of what we see here in this country. How many women who suffer domestic abuse actually even talk about it? And that really is the big concern, isn't it?
Yes. So, Tamanna, there are two perspectives here. One perspective is to deal with the narrative around the Me Too movement, the narrative around domestic violence, which is very skewed in favor of in favor of the victims, as it should be, because no violence in any form is justified by anyone. Having said that, let me also remind the viewers that this particular controversy basically exposed the underbelly of misogyny in such a deep way. And you very rightly pointed out the kind of tweets that came out, the kind of memes that came out. It basically goes on to show that in today's world of everything being driven by absolute consumerism, even in terms of information and even in terms of narrative building, it is very difficult to get away with chickenry. It is very difficult to get away with, making a false allegation and moving on. So if there are women who are on positions of power, and by power I don't necessarily mean positions of authority, women who can see that their voices are heard, they have to be pretty responsible when they accuse someone or basically want to get justice in their personal lives. That is point number one. Point number two. Now, with respect to India, of course I agree with you, and I would be an ostrich who would put my head in my sand if I say that this will not have the drawing room conversations or the quote-unquote locker room talks are going to get emboldened by this, because, this paints women in a certain light, which is not very pretty. Of course, we have staggering and heart-rending figures when it comes to cases of domestic violence. I mean, it's earth-shattering to even think that while this debate is going on, how the number of rapes that are happening in the country.
I want to just, one second, I just want to cite these figures. About a few weeks ago, we had a National Health Family Survey, All of you must have read it. And this is a survey conducted by the government. This showed that 45% of men and 44% of women think domestic violence is okay. It's fine if the wife doesn't perform her duties. Now, while I understand completely, Deepika, your sympathies for people who are falsely accused, I understand completely. The question is the pitch already skewed one way? And will this feed into that? Do you think that's a valid concern today?
Tamanna, one thing that I really wish to make a point here is, does justice belong only to women? Do we as a society stand where we, from a justice standpoint point of view, have to only talk about women? While you're giving me this data, there was just 2-3 days back, I think your channel also played a video where a man was beaten up with bats by his wife.
Yes.
If there was a video, do you know what has happened to that case, Tamanna? The woman has not been arrested. There has been no repercussion. She has just been given injunction. Now, imagine if you had played visuals of a husband beating his wife like that, Tamanna. That man would have been behind bars right today.
I'm not so sure, Deepika. I'm not so sure.
So
there are several cases. There are several cases where the man also gets an injunction.
See, there is society and there is legal justice. In a lot of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case is from the point of view of the legal standpoint on these cases. I do not think there is that there would be a pushback. I do not think one case has the power to make any pushback.
Okay.
The provisions largely stand in favor of justice for women. But this is one case which came to the public eye where there was a man who said, I am also a woman, I'm also a victim of domestic violence, where a woman challenged the man, you, Johnny Depp, you go and tell the world that you are a victim of domestic violence and see how many people will believe it. There are thousands and thousands of men also who go through this abuse.
I'm sure, but if
India,
there are thousands and thousands of men, how many men versus how many women? Shubhrashta,
is that a competition?
1 minute. Let Shubhrashta also come in. That's also the question, right? How many men versus how many women?
And is this a competition,
yes, the burden of proof. Remember, legally, like I mentioned, the burden of proof is with the person who's accusing. So if a woman comes and says that she was treated unfairly by her husband or her partner and his or her family, she has to prove it. Now, how do you prove it? Everyone doesn't have a CCTV camera in their living room like this gentleman who got beaten up does.
But now, still there are so many men who get convicted,
in
right?
this case, how do we ensure that those who are afraid to speak up are not further silenced? Shubhrashta.
Yes, Tamanna, first of all, I think as activists ourselves, or, an activist can, range from different parts of professions that we occupy: media, government, policy, etc., etc., etc. We have to make one thing really clear. The kind of visuals that, that you're showing on the screen right now comes from a very upper middle class Indian family. I'm not sure if women in lower middle class, rural India, would be able to even subject their husbands, forget about taking up physical violence.
Shubhrashta, just because I do come across these cases every day, please see my timeline. There are women from rural parts of India who are involved in murdering their husbands. Rural parts of India murdering their husbands, Shubhrashta. Go and please check the hashtag husband murder. These are cases that are coming from the lowest rung of
all right,
the society.
You speak and then I'll come
I think it's difficult to generalize either way. It's difficult to generalize either way. It's difficult to say that all men are, wife beaters and all women are always victims.
May I make my point?
Yes, please, Shubhrashta. Yes, please go ahead.
I have, in the beginning, I made a certain statement which seemed confusing precisely for this reason. I'm not standing with women or with men. I'm standing with justice in itself. I have utmost respect for the kind of work you do, Deepika. I know that isolated cases, and when you look at the larger picture, of course, these individual cases are horrific. I know people in my own families, women in my own families, distant families, who have made lives hell for men. But that doesn't discount the fact that out of 15 sisters that I have in the family, there are just 2 of them who have been, abusive towards their in-laws. The rest 13 have been subjected to inhuman conditions.
We have to have a fair system We have to have a fair system. At least we have to have a system where people can speak out whether they're men or women. If there's one good thing that perhaps can come out of this, apart from the glee of, peeping into someone else's life, is that men should speak out if they've been abused, women should speak out if they've been abused, and law should take their course. I think that's something we can all agree on. Thank you so much to both of you for joining us on the discussion at this point. We'll take a very short break, but we're coming